Hello, hello, everybody. How is everybody doing today? I got me a full house today. I need to
Yes, you
say
do.
hello, Jean. How you doing? Let's see. Okay, starting to my right, we got Jason. Then we got
Howdy.
Tex. Then we down at the bottom, we got Van Buren Variety, but that I think her name is Bob, right?
Bob Van Buren.
And then Bob, got you. And then at the bottom of the screen, we got Bigfoot Michigan Rob. This is Trinity PARA-CRYPTID. Everybody together. I think we're missing one, ain't we?
Well, we have one other person behind the scenes, and that's Shell, Shell Squatch. But she's
Okay.
had to take a hiatus because of health reasons. So
Yeah. Plus, she wouldn't come on a show.
no,
She
you would
likes
not
to
get
stay
her on.
behind.
Yeah, she does not get in. I can't talk her. I can twist her arm to get in front of the camera. So
There are more photos
All right.
of Sasquatch than there are of Shell.
that's true.
Well, that's cool. You all right there, Rob?
Yeah,
Okay.
Bless you, by the way.
I didn't want to sneeze on camera.
Well, you did.
You still your mic's still live, dude.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez. So you heard that. All right. Well, you have to edit it out, Brenda. I'll show you how to do it later.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post.
Okay.
Text knows
Okay.
I'm a technical wizard. Not.
Tex can't even find
So-
the button to get us out of a show. After 2 years of doing this, he's still like, "Hold on, there's a button somewhere."
Episode. He's like, hold on, hold on. Let me if I can figure out how to do this.
Well, I've
I've
always found that the more buttons you push, the funner things get. So it's just me.
Yeah, and yesterday too,
Mm.
Brenda, yesterday on Brunch with Bigfoot, I sent Tex 12 pictures 2 separate times, and of course I had to be the scapegoat and say, well, Rob never sent them to me for our show yesterday, so I swallowed my pride.
Okay, well, let's get this straight here. You actually sent me about 14 to 16 pictures. And there were a lot of duplicates, but you did not get all 12 that you were supposed to send in that group of 14
Yeah,
to 16
well,
pictures.
I'll give you maybe perhaps so.
So, don't be trying to throw me under the bus.
He's from Michigan. He'll push you under the bus and then back it up on you.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Isn't Detroit famous for the curb stomps? He might curb stomp me.
We got the big old greyhounds out here to run out of Detroit, so they got Mack wheels on them.
Well, Brenda, I appreciate you having us on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Yes. I've been waiting to meet you, Bob. I mean, like I said, Tex has been talking about you a lot, and I was like, okay, well,
That's
bring him
scary.
on the show too, so I can meet him.
Is it everything you dreamed it would be?
Well, he said,
Jason.
I got to talk to him first. Let me talk to him first. Well, I'll let you know. I'll get back to
Okay.
you. Put that one, as Tex say, put that one in your back pocket and hold on to it. Don't let me forget it.
There you go.
Well, good to meet you too. Mm-hmm.
It's nice to meet you. I am Brenda. I'm the newbie of the bunch. In case Tex hasn't told you, I go to Tex with a lot of my stuff. He tells me sometimes he'll tell me, Brenda, I think you're dealing with some pareidolia there, or he'll tell me, you know what? He goes, that's a dang good picture, and that's good proof. He's back and forth. He's like, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, honey, but I think you're dealing with pareidolia. But he made a good point the other day, and I think it was, matter of fact, it was on yesterday's show, Brunch with Bigfoot, where he says, and I think he was talking about me when he said it. He said, a newbie of the bunch, whatever. But I think that was directed towards me, and I didn't care because it's true. Tex is like trying to help me realize that not everything I'm seeing is Bigfoot. I'm so excited to go out there that I'm seeing them more than I should be, and they're not. I'm seeing things that are not there. Is what he's trying to point out to me. But I do have some good stuff.
I know I did when I got started. Everything I saw and heard was a freaking Bigfoot.
I, however, do have some good footage on my channel. I do. I have caught many of things, and I still enjoy it. I still like going out in the woods, but I'm doing what I can do to keep my subscribers happy. You know, I go out and I haven't got a bad complaint yet. So
Good.
But anyways, so
wait,
tell me a little bit about. Tell me a little bit about how you guys work as a team. It doesn't matter whichever, Jason, if you want to start off, Ken or Bob, it doesn't matter.
I mean, does broken family mean anything? I mean, abusive codependence. I mean, I think that kind of sums it up, really.
Jason sums it up correctly, and I'm the rogue of the bunch. I'm random, so you don't expect you're gonna expect out of me.
We have a love-hate relationship.
Right. I'm executive producer.
Yeah. And we love to hate him.
Yes.
I mean, we really do. Tex more than anyone, really.
Yeah, Bob is supposed to be the silent partner in this deal, but keeping him silent is a full-time job. So I just gave up and said, well.
Brenda, I get accused lots of times of, quote, interfering with the show. And you'll see that's not true.
Well,
no.
How do you interfere with the show, though? I'm trying to figure that out because we never see you. Ever.
Thank you.
We see Tex, we see Rob, but we don't ever see you.
Exactly.
Well, I've got him on a short leash now, but when we first started, he would let's see, what have you done, Bob? You
well, this is what I've got accused of.
Yeah, he's belched on camera. Not accused.
Photobombing.
Not accused. You belched on camera, dude, like several times.
Not several times.
At least twice.
I got accused of photobombing
all the time, but that's fine. Like him leaning in was funny. It was. I'm not as put off by it as Tex is, but like he'll lean into the front. He'll say like it's funny from time to time. I wasn't a fan of the belch, but I get it. Belches,
like
plural.
This.
Yeah, exactly. He would sort of squash his face in and then squash it out. You know, I thought that was amusing. Tex was not amused because what you don't know is it takes hours for Tex to get that pretty. And so to have someone else invade his camera space really throws him off. He's like, no. He's very prissy.
Easy to achieve, much
very
less,
prissy.
Much less maintain. So
Mm-hmm.
Well,
thousands of dollars of face cream every year.
And what,
I'm
Brenda?
a ham, and so it was hard, Brenda, for me to stay behind the camera. I mean, I didn't mind being executive producer and helping out and providing a studio and money, but there's a camera there, and to be told that I can't be on it, that was just no.
And before y'all make me out to be this hard driving ogre,
I was going for prima donna, but that works too.
I will quote you in a minute, Tex.
Not allowing people to do things. I never told Bob that he was not allowed to be on camera.
Well,
now hang on.
I'm gonna tell something in a minute. Go ahead.
But I did bark at him when he belched on camera.
You actually barked. Like it was a real bark. I mean, it's not even like that's not a metaphor for anything.
No, what I'm referring to is for a show. It's been a couple of months ago. He wasn't even on the air, Brenda. There was no Trinity show yet. It was going to be, but he was preparing for it, okay? And when I walked in the studio, before he went on the air, I got, quote, Bob, don't interfere with the show!
That's exactly what it looks like, too.
Well, Brenda, if I make a comment on our executive producer, I asked Tex maybe a month ago, what the hell does Bob do as executive producer? And he what? And he does listen. He does a lot of behind the scenes, and he has his own show, Van Buren Variety, which is an awesome show. But as some people may or may not know, I'm visiting Tex and Jason and Bob in the fall. And the mark of a great executive producer is this. This morning, FedEx delivered a round trip ticket on a Learjet that's going to take me from Detroit to Texas in like an hour and a half. That was incredible, and that's what an executive producer is supposed to do. Thank you, Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Champagne service and everything. Yeah.
Yep, I even got full maid service. I got a French bikini woman walking up and down the aisle for the whole hour and a half. Bobby, thank you very much.
Well, now I know why.
I was really avoiding that one.
Now I know why. I just had to pay for my own dinner.
Yeah.
I might have Jennifer Aniston down here for you, Rob, if you're interested.
Absolutely. We are right about the same age. That's
Bob,
your girl, though, Bob.
Bob, if you had her down here, there wouldn't none of us see hide nor hair of her. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, brother. But I don't know if anybody would see her again, to be honest with you. But you damn sure ain't going to share it with
Lord
nobody.
have mercy.
I tell you what, if I
Jennifer,
ever met
watch the
Jennifer
show, call
Aniston,
me.
if I ever met
Jennifer,
Jennifer
watch me, call
Aniston, if I ever met Jennifer Aniston, I would not tell her I'm into Bigfoot.
Bob's just over there. It rubs the lotion on its skin or it hits the hose again.
Now you see,
Lord
Brenda,
have
why I
mercy.
created my own show. You see why I have my own show.
But you
coming off
got
from them.
a bunch of good people with you. I mean, you got Jason, he's the brains behind the bunch. You got Tex, he's books behind the bunch. You got Rob, and Rob just like he's all in it for whatever. And then when you got you just run the whole show.
Now wait just a dadgum minute.
Now wait, I am the new booking guy, for God's sakes.
Yeah, you are filling the shoes of a producer that
But
is out.
but to be correct, let's correct something here.
Oh,
Tex
God.
is very clearly the brains. I'm the eye candy.
Thank
Yes,
you.
yes.
That is my job. Now I have to let Tex do something.
Wow.
I'm here. Hold on. Sorry, I forgot. All right, there we go.
There you go.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, I'm the eye candy. Bob's the executive producer. Rob is the guy who goes and gets these amazing guests, and Tex is the brains, i.e., he's the guy that we turn to and be like, Tex, what the hell is this? And he's like, it's this, and I'm like, great.
Found that hard to swallow.
Yeah, well, we're on air, Bob. We gotta talk good about him now.
Well, some water on that.
If we're gonna call a spade here, now I'm the one that don't get scared out in the woods. That's who I am.
I don't do that.
Now, see, now they're all going.
Wait, Bob, you get scared? You get scared out in the woods? You don't never go out in the hunt when Tex and all them go out?
I'm not scared of the woods. I'm scared of certain things in the woods.
Yeah, that's the woods is the problem. And I would like to point out, hold on. I would like to point out, you got freaked out as much as anyone that one night, sir.
Well, ain't that the pot calling the kettle black?
Secondly, I was talking to Tex. Yeah, Tex.
Okay, all right.
But secondly, it's what? Okay, so we have this problem. He's on the fence now. He thinks it was a Bigfoot. I'm kind of convinced it was a large cat, maybe even a tiger that had gotten loose that he ran across one night. And I'm over here like this whole, I'm going to go by myself into this, like most of it I'm fine with, but particularly the cemetery just seems like such a bad idea. Like, it's like, I'm not afraid of nothing. Okay, but when the tiger eats you, I'm going to laugh. And then I have to take over the show. And I'm going to have some Tex mannequin made or like little dolls set up to like prop him up beside a jukebox so you can still call it Tex's front porch.
It's not the cemetery that I got freaked out on. FYI.
Well, what you should have been freaked out is the meth heads.
Well, it wasn't that either, but
No, No, wait a minute.
You know,
I'm
was
going to
it-
stick up for Bob in this situation. Hold on just a second. I'm going to stick up for Bob in this situation because I'm a ghost hunter also, Bob.
Okay.
And Tex also has been involved when he goes out with the paranormal Amy. So he knows a little bit about graveyards too. Now, some of the things that come out of those graveyards is not nothing to sneeze about or laugh about. Yeah, we've come across some pretty strange things since we've been out ghost hunting too. Devil's tramping ground for one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
There's nothing but demonic there. So
That's
you know
scary,
what?
yeah.
I don't hold nothing against you, Car, when it comes to graveyards at all. Graveyards is where I spotted my first Bigfoot.
Oh, wow.
So
You know,
yeah.
I don't think we started out real well when the first time that Bob went out in the field with us. We had a Bigfoot, 30 yards from camp, watching us. And, and that was the same night that the whole Coven of Witches thing happened, and wasn't it?
There it is. Yep.
Yep.
That's it.
And
that was it. I
now,
was like, no. Mm-mm.
now I was the only one that and I'm not saying I'm some brave soul. I there's a fine line between bravery and stupidity, and I have crossed that line on numerous occasions.
Pole vaulted him. He is pole vaulted over that line.
When I found out that Coven was there, I'm like, I'm done. That was me. Sorry, you call me a chicken all you want, but I didn't know what was going on there. So yeah, that's.
Did you say?
So here's the problem. Like the Coven, like it's a disease now. It's like a bunch of women running around with their masks on. Whatever.
We have a COVID of witches now, or
we have a COVID of witches. So here's the thing: we go out on this particular trip. We're finding clothing. We're like there's a whole nightie hung up on a tree, like actually on a thing out there. If we're just like, where did we go? And of course, this is when the cops show up. And I will say this: I was there at the campsite by myself because I like to try and draw them to me with food and see if I can bring them in. Well, while I'm there, I have like,
on them.
Well, first of all, I will always pull a 44 on Tex because let's face it. But no, I'm sitting by myself, and I'll say it like I had it's like everything is fine. I'm copacetic. I'm chill, hanging out by the fire, and all of a sudden, there's this immediate flash of you are in mortal danger right now. And that's when I realized I'm like, hold on, my gun's still in the car. So I get the gun, I'm getting ready to go back, and I'm like, but I was like, I'm watching everything because I'm in, like, everything's telling me you're in danger. And that's when they pulled up, and I was like, okay, what's going on here? Because those clothes came from somewhere, But it turned out it was them. But that's when we were told about the Coven of Witches and the Tigers. So
now, see, that would have see what James Hutchins says. See, that would have changed the whole dynamic to everything, because I'd have been all right with that. I'd have joined in, but
which would have caused us to leave a lot sooner.
The thing about it is that when he says we found clothes, we found an entire wardrobe scattered through the woods.
And
just socks everywhere. Socks everywhere.
Socks, underwear, shorts, a shirt, a pair of sunglasses.
The 90.
Yeah, well, I'm that's different though. I'm talking.
Yeah.
This was, I mean, it looked like somebody had been stripping their clothes off going through the woods.
Numerous people, because like I said,
right.
That may, like Brown Springs, like the secret of Brown Springs may actually be that's where all your socks go when they go missing in the dryer.
We may have found the socks
because of all the socks that we found out there, and there were so it's like, okay, I figured we found mattresses just sitting out there, a toilet that's just sitting out there that has been used. Like, I get it, okay, it's the country, I get it, but still, that was unusual. Okay. That's all we're saying.
Brenda, you want to hear about the creepiest thing that I've ever had happen to me out there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hands down, the creepiest thing that has ever happened. I was by myself, and I go to my campsite, and I'm going to turn my speakers down a little bit. Okay, so I get out, I get all my stuff ready, and I pull up and laying on the side of the trail that goes to my campsite is a suitcase, and around it is scattered school papers, pictures of a teenage boy.
Oh, wow.
And all this personal stuff. Well, then I get a whiff of something dead.
Wow.
And that's back when I could still smell. And I get
That
a whiff.
explains a lot.
I get a whiff of something dead. And I'm like, oh man, this is not going to be good. I'm staring at all this stuff. I'm smelling a dead body. I'm fixing to have to call 911, and I haven't even got a fire lit yet. And this is going to ruin my entire trip. I'm going to walk over here and I'm going to find a dead body, because that area is known for people dumping dead bodies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not out of the realm of possibility. So I go tracking the smell down and everything, and I find it. It's a bittersweet find, but somebody had took their dog out and shot it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Now, I know that's sad, but at least
It was better than the alternative.
At least it wasn't a dead human body, so I didn't have to call the police.
Right.
And at least they did shoot the dog; they didn't make it suffer. So, but anyway, for that little brief period of time when I'm walking through the trees, tracking down this dead body, I'm thinking, okay, I may have to find me another place to go.
Mm-hmm.
But,
yep.
That was the creepiest thing that I've ever had happen to me, and I've lost time. I've had, Bigfoot walk up on me. I've had a bunch of stuff. So.
That's a heck of a photograph right there.
Man, they would win a beauty contest with that photo picture. See, I watched Chimps of Eden. One of the chimps was obsessed with stealing clothes. But, well, that's not the only time that we found clothes. The clothes that we found that trip were all male.
Not all of them.
The following trip, at another campsite, we found almost the exact same thing, but they were female clothes. So there's something weird going on down there.
There's a lot of weird things going on down there. We'll say that.
Yeah.
I think we got a good idea of what some of those weird things are, but
right.
Like I said, the meth heads and witches and teenage orgies. Oh my!
Yeah.
But we're more interested in the crypto and the paranormal stuff and the tigers, because we are those kinds of people.
Now we did that
Right.
same trip that they were looking for the coven of witches. The way we found out they were looking for a coven of witches is we just pulled up to the cemetery. It was me and Bob, Amy, Laney, and Cody. And we'd left Jason back at camp.
Mm-hmm.
Being my sexy bait self, that's
right.
That's what I'm doing.
So
absolutely,
we were fixing to go up to the cemetery. We just pulled in the entrance. Next thing we know, we're surrounded by 5 cop cars. And so we get out, go through the whole "we're not armed" thing and all this kind of stuff. And they start to tell us about this, what they're looking for. They're looking for a coven of witches that were out there sacrificing chickens.
Yep.
There was several women all dressed in black, sacrificing chickens, doing some ritual stuff. So then we started having a conversation with all these. We had sheriff's deputies and we had tribal police there with us. They start telling us, they're the ones that told us about the tigers being reported, that they've had reports of tigers.
Mm-hmm.
They also told us that 2 officers on their department, I won't say which department, but has had Bigfoot sightings out there. And then one of the officers told us about a paranormal accident he had happened to him in the cemetery when he was 16. So, it was a very eventful night, although we didn't even get to go to the cemetery. We could have, but nobody really wanted to go after we found all that stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Well, so here's the things get even a little bit creepier. I actually think I drove because I had gotten there late. When I got there, I was following on one of the trails a SUV that had like stickers and decals on it that made me think, okay, this is probably some soccer mom's car or whatever. And they pulled off before I did. I wouldn't be surprised if I was driving behind one of those witches, because of the way they had described the coven and what they were looking for. I'm like, that was probably one of the participants.
It was a black SUV, and you were following the black SUV.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's like, yeah, like once they told me that, I'm like, that gets a little creepy, a little too close to home. But please, you're asking Bob something.
Bob, have you been out like really actually hunting with these guys, and have you experienced anything that would just say, okay, well, y'all can have the field, I'll stay back behind? Has there been anything like since you started this?
No. I just been on one outing with them earlier this year, and it was interesting. But yeah, I didn't see anything that just experienced anything like that, as far as cryptid or Bigfoot or anything. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going out again though. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Bob has had his own paranormal experience.
Yeah. Yes, he has.
And it was creepy in its own right. It involved a Ouija board.
Yeah, I tell.
Well, tell me about it.
Let me preface it by saying I tell people, warn people all the time. I mean, on a serious note, don't mess with Ouija boards, because they're not.
Oh no, I don't.
Toy. It's not a game. I mean, you never know what you're coming across, and just because you try to contact so and so, more than likely that's not the person, or should I say in this case entity, that it's going to come back through. And it makes me angry sometimes when you go to a toy store, you go to any local Walmart, department store, you're probably going to find Ouija boards for sale. And guess where they're going to be? In the toy department, the children's department.
Yep.
I'm like, wow. So it's not a game. I just tell people, stay away from it. So.
Yeah, and Bob, and you had a crappy experience.
I don't like to repeat the name.
You what, Brenda?
Yeah.
No, I don't like to repeat the name that they say comes out from that board, but what you're saying is very true. But go ahead, Rob.
What'd you say, Rob?
No. I was just gonna make a point or a comment on who would think that, and I believe something bad happened to you, Bob, or something that you don't want to. That was traumatic. Mm-hmm. I mean, exactly. I mean, buying a Ouija board from Milton Bradley at a Walmart, Toys R Us, which is now defunct, but you would think that'd be just a simple child game. I mean, I've never had a Ouija board. I've never wanted nothing to do with them just because of things I've heard. But to think, a mom and dad might, buy their 7-year-old a Ouija board for Christmas Day, one part of their toys they get, and you don't even know what you're doing or opening. And so, to me, it's hard to believe. I believe you, and I believe all these experiences people have said, but it's just so hard to fathom that something from Parker Brothers, Milton Bradley could bring out demons or unnatural things.
You've never played Monopoly, have you?
Brings out the
I never got past go. I never got past go, Jason. I never collected my $200. I was always in jail.
Well, yeah, my Detroit brother there. I get you. No, so Bob, why don't you give us a sort of a rundown of your story, because it is interesting, and to a point, it ties into kind of what we've been doing recently on our channel. Some of the discussions we're having about cryptozoology and Bigfoot also. Rob?
Well,
I'm sorry, Bob. I'm sorry, I said Rob. I was looking at the prettier of the two. I'm sorry.
Well, Rob
Okay.
has some ghost experiences too now. Don't get it
Oh, yeah?
twisted. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead,
mine all
Bobby.
started. I was living in an apartment. I lived there for a year and a half. I loved living there. That's probably one of the best times of my life was living in that apartment. Now, other than this, no. But it was a great time in my life. So anyway, I loved living there. I mean, I partied in that apartment. So, but anyway, so I've been there a year and a half about when this happened. And I was talking to a neighbor of mine who we're about the same age at the time. We're 21, 22, 23. Well, the landlord's daughter had come around the corner, and she's about our age as well, 20, 21, 22. And they had owned this apartment complex for quite a number of years. And so we kind of got on the subject with her about, you know what, you've owned this apartment complex for so many years. I bet you've seen a lot of people just, moving in, moving out, all the things. And she said, yeah, lots of things, a lot of strange people, a lot of good people. But then she pointed at my apartment, which I was standing outside of it. She goes, well, you do know there was a murder in your apartment, don't you, Bob? And no, maybe that's something maybe you should have informed me about, so, but she told me how the guy died. It was very, very graphic. He died in the kitchen, actually, is what I found out. Well, me and my, sarcastically speaking, infinite wisdom decided to pursue that a little bit more. So I knew a relative that had a Ouija board, one of the Parker brothers ones, So me and again my stupidity decided I want to contact this guy that used to live there. So one night, right around midnight, it's about in April of that year, I bought a little candle, got the Ouija board, turned off all the lights in the apartment, lit the little candle, and I put it on the kitchen floor. And I sat next to the refrigerator with the Ouija board, which is where I'd heard this guy had passed away. I know, stupid, but you're going to hear it. So, and I even knew the guy's name. So I was calling out, I had my hands on the little planchette, and I kept calling out, are you here? Do you hear me? Will you talk to me? This went on for about 10 to 15 minutes, and I was very calm, but nothing happened in that 10 to 15 minutes. There was no change of temperature. The little candle didn't even flicker. I mean, it was nothing. So about 10 to 15 minutes of sitting in the floor with that thing, I started feeling really stupid. I'm thinking, there's nothing to this. It's a complete hoax. I'm wasting my time. I can't believe I did this in the first place. Well, directly in front of me, in front of the refrigerator, there's a set of kitchen cabinets. And I pulled the cabinet drawers out. And that particular cabinet was just like a catch-all, had a bunch of junk, papers and stuff in there. So I actually didn't throw it, but I put the Ouija board and the planchette in this cabinet. Close the doors. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get this back to my cousin tomorrow because it's a waste of time. So it's late at night. So I get ready for bed, and the bedroom wall is right on the other side of the kitchen. And it's in April, so it's not cold or hot, but I do have a little desk fan that I turned on a dresser just for the noise and kind of keeps the air going. So I'm laying in bed. I'm just on top of the covers there. And I start feeling, chill bumps, goosebumps, if you will. And at first I'm thinking, why am I cold? It's not cold outside. It's not cold in the apartment. Why am I feeling cold? And then later on, it occurred to me, wait a minute, these are not chill bumps of being cold. I'm starting to feel really afraid, like fear. Okay. And then I'm not going to mock the sound. There's no way I can mock the sound. But in my bedroom, there was this huge, huge screech noise. I mean, it was just constant. It didn't. Yeah. Of course, the light switch is right above my bed where I'm laying down. So I flick on the switch all of a sudden. And that little fan that I had on the dresser, the blades are doing this. They're just barely moving, but they're screech. It's a loud screech noise. It freaks me out. So I get up out of bed. I jerk that thing out of the wall, the fan. And I thought, that thing's leaving the house right now. So I put my little house slippers on, go in the kitchen, open the door. No Ouija board, no planchette. And it was right on top of a bunch of the junk that's in the cabinet. So now at this point, I am throwing stuff out of the cabinet. Papers, games, pots, pans, just Everything's coming out. I mean, it's the whole kitchen floor is littered now, and it's not there. And I just know, like, I was sitting right here in front of the refrigerator. The cabinet is right there. I pulled the doors open, laid it on top, and I'm going through stuff. And it's not there. And I, 20 minutes. I'm looking. I'm re-looking, looking around the kitchen. I knew I didn't carry it off anywhere. So finally, I'm like, okay, I kind of calmed down a little bit. I'm like, okay, it's here somewhere. I don't know where it's at, but let me just calm down. Let me go to bed, relax. I'll look for it in the morning. So I went back in the bedroom, left the mess in the floor in the kitchen, and it's good to note that the carpet in the bedroom, I mean the floor in the bedroom was carpeted, okay, and I have my house slippers on, and I normally just kind of kick them under the bed in case I needed it. Well, as I'm going to bed, I kick off the first slipper, and I hear a sound like this. And I'm like, okay, well, a house shoe hitting carpet does not sound like that. So I get on my hands and knees. I open up the quilt and the sheet. I look under bed. The planchette and the Ouija board are on the floor directly beneath where I had been sleeping.
No.
Yeah. That was
you're supposed to burn them things.
Yeah.
You're supposed to burn them and bury them.
Yeah, I got rid of it. I actually had a psychic come in, but how did that Ouija board get from the kitchen cabinet and get into my bedroom underneath where I had been sleeping? I did not carry it in there. There's no reason for me. I wouldn't have carried it in there. So
the story about the psychic though is really that's a new addition that we hadn't really heard before the other day. Tell us that story, because that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'll go and jump ahead just a little bit. I moved out of that apartment about less than a month after that happened. I was done. But no, I brought a psychic in because
I don't blame you.
Me out. Yeah, it was freaking me out too bad. And I brought a psychic in and told him the story, what happened. And he got to thinking about it. He's like, no, wait a minute. He was sensing something. He said, Bob, did you have a woman, preferably an elderly woman, that's no longer here, that thought a lot of you and that was really looking after you, wanted the best for you? I had to thinking about that. I thought, well, about 2 or 3 years ago, there was an elderly woman that I'd met when I worked in a department store, and she actually led me to the church. She was, the most saintly woman I've ever met in my life. And it was because of her I turned my life around. So I'm like, yeah. I said, I had that. Why? He goes, that was her. And I'm like, what do you mean her? He goes, the fan. He said that board had followed me in the bedroom. And if that board, according to him, had spiritually broke, it would have went through me and it would have taken me, either possessed me or killed me, one way or the other. It would have got me. This elderly woman saw what was happening. She's the one, according to him, that caused that fan to screech, screech, screech like this. That was her way of getting me out of bed before it happened. So it did. It worked. It got me out of bed before that thing had a chance to break through and go through me.
Wow.
But anyway, while we were sitting there talking, he said, now, Bob, whatever happens here, we were in the living room when this happened. He's sitting across from me by a coffee table. We have the board on the coffee table. We didn't use it. But he goes, no matter what happens, Bob, I want you to look right at me. Don't look around no matter what happens. Like, okay. So I'm looking, he's talking, he's saying a bunch of things. I don't know. I don't really remember. He was chanting some stuff. But all of a sudden, in the corner of my eye, my bedroom door is this way. And it's wide open. I can see it. The lights, is on the kitchen living room. All I can describe, it was like this large, oval-shaped, I want to say creature. I'll say shape. I would say, if I had to guess, 6 feet, 6'2", and it was like a large, black, oval-shaped shape. But it had fuzz all around it, like hair. There was no face, no arms. It was just like a large, oval-shaped black over. And I saw it in my doorway through my peripheral vision. And he asked me, without even me saying what I saw, he goes, do you see that? And I said, yeah. And he's like, that's where he almost got you, wasn't it? The bedroom. I said, yeah. And yeah, he did some things over the board. We got rid of the board. He got rid of the board. And but I remember asking him, I said, I don't understand. I kept, my mind was still on the guy that had lived there before that was killed. I was like, why would this man be so angry of me contacting him? I just wanted to have a conversation with the guy. And that's when it hit me. The psychic said, Bob, you didn't contact the guy that was murdered here. You contacted a demon. And that was it. That was all she wrote. And I was done. So that's my story. That was a freak. That really freaked me out. It scared me enough to never do it again.
That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. I don't mess with the Ouija board. So, I mean, I truly, firmly believe in them. And everybody's talking about they shouldn't be in the toy stores. They shouldn't be in the toy department. They really shouldn't. They're not real. There's like you guys heard it here. You heard what his story behind the Ouija board. And if you mess with the Ouija board, put it down, leave it alone. Don't bother it again.
No.
You don't never know what's going to come off of that board at all.
The person you're trying to contact will not be the thing that comes out. I can guarantee you that. It'll not pretend to be that person, but it's not that person.
And that's where it ties into what we think is going on out in the field.
Yeah, a lot of outside the fact that this creature, this entity that was in Bob's house, he talks about being fuzzy, hairy. It's very common to have in seances and some of these other events for the creature that is seen to be described as a hairy man beast. In fact, you go back, most religions, particularly Judeo-Christian artwork, always portray the devil or a devil as being covered in hair with large teeth. This sort of idea of him being more reptilian is a very modern concept. So, and if we go back, we see things like the Shadim, we see the Leshy, we see Pan, we see the Fawns. It really trolls, elves, they're all kind of the same thing. They're all initially described as these hairy supernatural creatures that are humanoid that are off in the woods, right? We see they're all throughout human history, every culture. And so the question that we're starting to ask is, where is this line between the paranormal and the cryptozoological, right? Where's the difference between Bigfoot and some of these other creatures? How, so much of the Bigfoot lore is, it was dark, I got out, I saw this 8-10 foot creature. People call it has glowing red eyes, no features, but it's there, right? It makes no noise. Or maybe it disappears or fades away or does something else. Or it's telepathic, or it's haunting them, or it follows them across states to attack their home. Or one guy was talking about how he's still convinced it was a Sasquatch, and it's like he's over here. He drives essentially 80 miles back to camp. It was only like, I think 30 miles as the crow fly, but there's like mountains and hills in between. And he's like, I had my encounter over here. I drive it, like 80 miles over here, and by 1 a.m. they're banging on my tent. He's like, they had followed me either across or over. And I'm like, just stop to think about what you just said. No natural creature is they're either gonna have to follow you directly, meaning you're gonna have to follow your car. They're not going 80 miles out of their way to track you down. And if there's no way for them to have gotten from there to there. If you're going over mountains, you're not doing that. It's not so we think that a lot of what's being called Bigfoot isn't Bigfoot. It's paranormal. It is these other entities. We can call them demons, we can call them whatever, but they are spiritual beings that either present themselves as these hairy figures, or perhaps that's what they are. We don't know. But they are intimately involved in the Bigfoot mythos, in the Bigfoot story. And it's definitely making it harder for us to sort of decide what is Bigfoot, right? Because again, you're seeing we're seeing these other things everywhere. And so long as all these other things are being called Bigfoot and being put into that camp, then we can't really say what's what. Like we don't even know enough about what Sasquatch really is to say what it isn't truly, right? And so that's sort of what one part of the conversation that we're having now is how do we separate these things out? And in the other, of course, the subtext of that question is, can we even separate them out? It's honestly out of just sheer stubbornness that we're saying that there is a physical, natural, and by physical I mean natural Bigfoot, because just because something's paranormal doesn't mean it can't take physical form, right? I think it's just stubbornness that's telling us that there's a physical, natural, bipedal, again, whatever that term actually means. We don't know if they're actually truly bipedal, right? At least semi-bipedal primate out there that is being called Bigfoot. Like, we're just holding on to that idea. But we're trying to figure out if they even can be separated. But if we can separate them, how to separate them, so we can know what's physical or what's natural and what's supernatural. But as Bob's story sort of tells us here, it's like, well, hold on, that line may be harder to figure out than we think. Just because, just because it's hairy and big and in the woods doesn't mean that it's Bigfoot, right? It's like you have a dark figure with glowing red eyes, and you capture on a recording device voices or languages that you don't recognize and you didn't hear them at the time. You take all that, you put in the woods as Bigfoot, but you take all those same exact events and you put them in a house, and suddenly it's a haunting. Or you take them to a bridge and it's spiritual activity, right? Or photographs and you take photographs and there's this dark figure that you didn't see while you were there, but it's clearly in the photograph. Again, you put it in a house, you put it in a bridge, it's supernatural. It's a demon, or it's a haunting, or it's a poltergeist, but you put it in the woods, Bigfoot. And that's really been sort of where we've been, as you know, for the last few months, is really trying to start taking this Gordian knot apart. Because if we have these things in that basket that we're trying to figure out what is Bigfoot, if we can't separate them out, then we're never going to figure out what Bigfoot actually is. That's even assuming that there is a physical Bigfoot that's at the heart of any of this, right? We're just working from that assumption. It may be that by the time we're done, maybe that there is no physical Bigfoot. Maybe that's all. I'm not saying, again, that doesn't mean that people aren't seeing things. And in one of the things I wrote about in my most recent book, which I don't happen to have a copy of, but Tex might, if he's on the ball.
Actually,
he's not.
I took mine home.
Oh, you took yours home. There you go. Safe place. So Bob doesn't need it. But
it's the Metroplex Monsters. It's the Metroplex Monsters found on Barnes and Noble. Yes, Metroplex Monsters.
Yeah.
Barnes and Noble.
It'll
Amazon.com.
And Amazon.com. Anywhere fine books are sold. But like, there are several stories of, in broad daylight, what are clearly paranormal entities, like a goat man, actually appearing to people. I've got a lechusa actually chasing a young woman in a way that just, it actually chases her, and when it lands and it's affecting the trees around her, and then when she gets to her front yard, when she sees it, it's actually, the whole tree is basically bending down from the weight. So this was a physical thing. It was a real thing that was chasing her, but it was also a paranormal thing, right? So when people say, so if you mean paranormal, you mean it doesn't really exist? I'm like, no. Paranormal does not mean it doesn't exist. But right now, what we're trying to say is that there is a natural Bigfoot. It eats, it poops, it breeds. It's just an animal, right? Or somewhere along the hominid line. And then there are other paranormal entities that either deliberately are trying to make themselves or pass themselves off as Bigfoot, or we're mistaking them for Bigfoot. One of the two. But it may be at the end of this journey that we say, maybe there is no physical or natural Bigfoot. Maybe it's all part of the same thing. And maybe they're taking the form of Bigfoot for some people. Maybe they're taking the form of dogmen for others. and maybe they look like something else for other people, right? Whatever the story of the area is what they're manifesting as. So that's where Bob's little exploration of Ouija boards is an interesting story because of that. It's like, hold on, we've drawn in the cryptozoological and paranormal world, we've drawn this hard and fast line between the paranormal and the cryptozoological, and it's like, well, hold on, maybe that line isn't as hard and fast as we think. Just because you're getting activity in the woods does not mean that it's not paranormal. It doesn't mean that it's a cryptozoological creature. And of course, throughout the halls of cryptozoology, there are plenty of critters that just don't seem like they're natural creatures all when all is said and done with. They seem to be part of this other spiritual, supernatural ecosystem that we don't really have a firm grasp on.
Well, it's
go
ahead, Rob.
Yeah. What Jason just said, I 1,000% agree with what Jason says, and I know that they do the research in Brown Springs, and it's very confusing. It makes it harder to research a Bigfoot versus a paranormal entity, and so on and so forth. I won't get into it. We've got a lot of shows on it, and they're very informative. But yesterday I was kind of enlightened because on my Bigfoot encounter, I perceive it to be flesh and blood. I think that Tex's encounter with the dog man was a flesh and blood. And Duke Sullivan was on Brunch with Bigfoot yesterday, and we were talking about something, and he's been a researcher for 40 years, and he's seen flesh and blood Bigfoot, as he has claimed, right, throughout his career in the field. And he made a point to Tex and I, because we were talking about Brown Springs, and we're talking about where he does his research in Montana. And he did make a good point where if you're researching in a place that's known to be haunted, if you're researching in a place where there's no spiritual activity or entities, and there's also perhaps the presumption of Bigfoot, that really makes it very tough to decipher, as Jason said, what you're really looking at or seeing versus going to a place such as maybe the Pacific Northwest, perhaps Montana, where Duke resides, where he knows it's not haunted. Now, you don't know for a fact. I'm just saying, we know Brown Springs is something weird going on there regardless. Pacific Northwest Montana, where it's just more terrain, there's no reports, it's not an Indian burial ground, there's no First Nations people residing in that area for the past 1,000 years. So that's easier perhaps to differentiate between what we're looking at, because when you combine what Jason just explained, it just makes it a lot tougher for doing research, and you really don't know what you're perhaps looking at. So I would try to go to a place where you presume there's no paranormal activity if you're looking for Bigfoot, versus Brown Springs, where we got a whole plethora of craziness and high strangeness.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Well,
it's like one step. It's like one step away from being Skinwalker Ranch.
Right.
At this point,
for the time being, what we had to do is reevaluate what we consider an actual Bigfoot sighting. And
right.
Because I've seen them in broad daylight. I've seen 2 in broad daylight. Okay. Could see the hair, the color, So, my first one I saw, it jumped up out of a wheat field. I could see it from the waist up until it hit the fire break. And then I saw it from head to toe for a couple of steps. So, those, what we call Class A sightings, for lack of a better term, are the only thing that we're considering a Bigfoot sighting anymore for us, because we have to start trying to separate this stuff. All these dark humanoid entities that we're seeing with what we're calling eye shine or glowing eyes or whatever, we can't say that those are Bigfoot. The dark, what everybody's referring to as a blob squatch. We can't call those Bigfoot anymore. Now, Brenda, going back to a few pictures that you've got, there's one picture that really, really stands out to me, and the face is so good. You can see the oiliness on the face and the details of the face. To me, that you caught a squatch. There's no doubt in my mind. You know, but you've got some other stuff that are just weird shapes in a tree, and we've ran them through filters, you know, and looked at them.
Right.
And I've got them up on the channel. We can't say that was a Bigfoot. You know, unfortunately, we can't. But we're not saying that, you know, stuff's not being found out there either. You know, one of the best pictures that I think that I've got, where we went out and we took comparison photos and everything. The shadow did not, the being or whatever you want to call it, was not there at the comparison photos, and we measured it and it was 12 feet tall. But there's not enough detail, and it's a broad daylight photo, but there's not enough detail for me to say, okay, well, that's a Bigfoot. Used to be, I considered it was a Bigfoot. I thought it was one of the big alpha males. I can't be so sure now. You know, the stuff that I tend to catch on audio that we don't hear when we're actually there. You know, I've gotten voices, I've gotten growls, I've gotten grunts, I've got, you know, you name it. And arguably I've got a couple of belches, but I don't know what that is.
You've also got purring.
Yes.
Because it was a tiger, Tex.
Very well could have been. But
you're kitty.
The belching was DVD.
We're just having to make. We're having to draw some lines because it's getting harder and harder to separate all this stuff. Just like Jason was saying, you take these entities that we're seeing, these shapes that we're seeing with glowing eyes, whatever you want to call it, humanoid shapes, and you throw them in a house or a graveyard, they're a ghost or they're a demon. Put them out in the woods, we're calling it Bigfoot. Why? You know, so the Bigfoot umbrella has encompassed so much. And one of our main concerns is mind speak. You know, these people that are having these experiences and, you know, think it's Bigfoot speaking to them. Our worry and our concern is that it's not. You know, it's something else saying, okay, well, if I present myself as Bigfoot, I get my foot in the door. They'll let me in. They'll talk to me. They'll communicate with me. You know, that's a scary thought.
Yeah.
So when you've got something mind speaking to you out in the woods, I wouldn't put all my eggs in the basket saying it's a Bigfoot. I just wouldn't. I couldn't.
No.
I've never had anything mind speak to me out in the woods. But if I do, I've got a lot of questions for it.
Yeah.
Well, and to a point, just to bring it back to the cryptozoological, that's kind of why I'm trying to restart doing my research here in North Texas for the living pterosaurs that are out here, right? Because at least for the time being, they don't seem to be necessarily connected to anything paranormal, and they don't seem to be as smart as Bigfoot. They just seem to be flying reptiles. So we should theoretically be able to track them down if we're looking for them. The thing is, a lot of people aren't looking for them, right? Because it's not as sexy. It hasn't necessarily made a big splash yet. And to be honest, like even Ken Gerhardt, when I met him, he wasn't necessarily aware of all the sightings in North Texas. This has been a much more recent development. He was more like all his stuff was more down south around the Rio Grande, San Antonio area. It wasn't until very recently we started getting more stuff out of Oklahoma and now North Texas. I was actually one of the few stories that he had gotten. He's like, I didn't know there were any in North Texas. Now it's like we're starting to really build that research out a little bit. So it's sort of a thing that we're also going to try and do and actually go into some of these areas where they're seen. And we're not necessarily looking for nesting areas, right? Because they're not birds. They're not going to have a nest. They're like reptiles. So they're just going to, but they are going to look for certain habitats to live in. And so my thought is maybe the ones that we're seeing up here are juveniles, and they're reaching certain sizes and then they're leaving, and maybe they're coming back for breeding purposes. So if we can find a place where they're maybe the juveniles are nesting, or they're living in order to grow large enough to eventually leave, and the larger ones are what we're seeing down south, right, or seeing along the coast, that may actually make a lot of sense. And so, like, what we're kind of looking for are the infants, the ones that maybe can't necessarily fly yet, or the ones that are just now flying. They're learning how to fly. They're sort of getting their lives under them so they can go off and go terrorize someone in South Texas or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of different things about cryptozoology that everyone focuses on Bigfoot because that's the thing that's popular, but there's a lot of cryptozoology out there. And even if it's as banal as oversized catfish, right? Catfish that are larger than they're supposed to be, alligator gar that are larger than they're supposed to be. That's still a form of cryptozoology, right? To say, hey, there may be things out here that just because, they may be monster-sized animals that are known, that's no less important to this story. Because unless you actually know what all is out there, you don't know what to think is not there. Because this goes sort of hand in hand with the question of what's paranormal, what's supernatural, what's cryptid, what's natural. We got to answer all the questions. So we can't really leave any stone unturned. And each little piece brings us closer together to finding what does the world that we actually live in look like? Because what's really at the heart of all of this is the narrative of what reality is. The people who reject cryptozoology, they reject the paranormal, they have a very, the mainstream view of the world is that it's all mechanistic, right? There's no God, there's no supernatural, there's no cryptozoology. Everything, we know what the answer is. It's this narrative. This is the narrative that we have to live by. All of these things call that into question. Every living pterosaur, every Bigfoot, every supernatural encounter, they all call these assumptions that the mainstream has into question. And every little piece that we get shows us a little bit more about what reality actually is.
Well, the way Jason's mind works is amazing.
Terrifying is a better word.
What's amazing is the fact that it works at all with all the stuff he's got running around it. But what we're trying to do now is get the people that are in this gorilla camp, for lack of a better term, with Bigfoot, and are in the woo camp. It's what everybody calls a woo camp. Is be open-minded enough to say, well, maybe it's not Bigfoot that's speaking to me, or maybe it's not every dark picture that I get or every dark figure I see out in the field is not, this 10-foot tall gorilla, flesh and blood. So we all have to be open-minded enough to call our own findings into question and go, it may not be what I thought it was. And that's hard to do. I mean, Brenda, yourself. I mean, it's when you find something out, you get some footage, you get some audio, whatever. It's exciting, and
it is.
Like, I caught a Bigfoot. And, well, maybe not, but that doesn't mean it's pareidolia either. It means you may have caught another entity. Is pareidolia that word a thing? Yes, definitely. I'm guilty of it myself. If you're good, and Brenda, you got this gift that allows you to pick out patterns, allows you to see things, and it's a bittersweet thing. It's a gift and a curse, because you take these pictures and you say, oh, look here, You as a researcher have to back up and go, okay, I need to go out and recreate this photo and be my own worst skeptic and try to debunk everything that I found in that picture. But I don't want to. Well, I know you don't. I don't. You know, I take pictures and I'm like, it's right there. Well, no, not necessarily. You know, or it may not be what you think it is, but it's like,
well,
going
there's
through
a
audio.
joke. Yeah, there's a joke in the community about if it's like, how do you know it's not a Bigfoot photo? Well, there isn't a big red circle around it showing you where it's supposed to be.
Right.
Right.
I've gotten away from that. Used to, I did the same thing. And a lot of researchers do. You know, they'll go, well, look at here and you draw a red circle, or look at here and whatever. I've gotten away from that. You tell me what you see. Let's see if we see the same thing. I'm not going to tell you what I see. I'm going to tell you that I think there's something out there. I'm not going to tell you where, but you pick it up and then we'll compare notes. Because I think that's one of the checks and balances that we have to put in place as researchers. But and then after you compare with a couple, well, I saw this here, I saw this here, I saw this here, then you can compare. Okay, well, then you can break the picture down and go, okay, what do you see here? Why did I see this and you saw this? You know, so and it's the same thing with audio. Oh God, you know, especially Brown Springs is really difficult because you get up, especially the cemetery, because you get up on top of that hill, you can hear a train, you can hear noise from the casino, you can hear noise from the highway, you can hear the cows, you know, so you really, really had to break down the audio and go, okay, well, 90% of this crap I have to write off. You know, even though it sounds freaking weird, 90% of it has to go. It's the stuff that really sticks out. And you can go, okay, well, this is what I heard. You know, what do you hear? You know, but we have to develop as researchers, and I'm not picking on you, Brenda. I swear to God, I'm not. I love you to death.
You're fine. You're
yes,
fine.
he is.
But as researchers, we have to develop a thick skin for somebody to question our stuff, because there's so many researchers out there. And I am so glad you're not one of them, Brenda. I can't tell you how glad I am that somebody calls your stuff into question. You don't get defensive and irate and everything. You know, you're going to pull back. You're going to take a look. You know, and that's so refreshing. And if more researchers did that and were able to do that, you know, I was the same way. And I keep going back to that photo, but I would show it to somebody and go, well, it just looks like leaves to me. I mean, what the hell? It looks like leaves. Look at this. It looks like Andre the Giant standing there in the woods. But, you know, and buddy of mine, Randy, is a paranormal guy. And I sent him a ghost picture that I got in Georgia. And he was like, well, it could be reflections. It could be this. It could be, what are you seeing, Randy? Are you looking at the same picture I am? He goes, well, tell me about the history of the picture. How many pictures did you take in series? How many, you know, was it, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And at first I got kind of bent out of shape. Why are you questioning me like that, dude? You know me. But when you back up and you go, well, he has to. If he's got any salt as a researcher at all or an investigator, he has to. That's what I love about Amy and Laney. You know, they're like, okay, well, this is weird, but, you know, here's what this might be, but I don't know, you know. And you can question any research they got. You know, they're like us. You know, you question whatever you want, and they'll try to explain why they think this is what it is. They're not going to get all offensive about it. But I think until we get, well, let's put it out there. Until we can put our egos aside and focus on the research and the evidence, we're spinning our tires. And
pretty much,
let's call it what it is. There is a huge amount of very, very large egos in this field.
Yes.
you get one of these guys that's been doing it for a long time, and they've been told for so many years that you're the one all be all of this crypto or paranormal field, and you call something in question to them about them, they go off the rails. Not all of them, but a lot of them. You need to get over yourself, because I'm trying to, improve the research. I'm trying to,
and yeah, exactly, improve the research and ask different questions, or at least ask questions a different way. Like either this coming episode or episode X, we're going to ask a hard question. It's inspired by a lot of different things, but one of them was Taylor James, who we had on Monday. He said something that the way he said it is what struck me, because I've been kind of dealing with it since it was something I saw when I was writing the book about the mythology of the Metroplex monsters. I noticed something in the pattern of stories and myths, and it's really changed my perspective on things. But he said something. He said, it doesn't matter if Bigfoot's real or not, the myth is real. And that was when he said that, my mind just broke, because he's right. Like, some of the questions that we're trying to ask on our channel isn't to be disrespectful or to say that none of this stuff is real. It's to say, though, we need to understand it. If we're going to understand it, we need to understand it from the perspective of reality. And the problem is, are we relying too much on the mythology? Are we relying too much on lore? And how much does that mythology and lore actually affect people's perceptions of what they're seeing and hearing? Right? Because I go back to something we said, what was it, last year now, Tex? If any of these experts actually knew what they were doing, we'd have the evidence we need. I mean, straight out.
Right. Yep. Well, right. And as you know, Jason, there are no experts, but they claim to be, since some do. And I was just thinking about something. Like, within the last year, a lot of people are focused on whether you're a researcher or whatever, whether you're enthralled with Bigfoot, Dogman, the paranormal. And I just, over the last year, though, I was thinking about something else, that a lot of people, too, are closed-minded or doing their research with blinders on, because a lot of us, I'm interested in everything. I had a Bigfoot encounter, but that's not why I'm doing this today, because I always liked this genre of everything that encompasses everything. And I think a lot of people, there's so much in the forest that we just don't know. I mean, if you believe in Bigfoot, or if you've seen Bigfoot, then, there's things out in the forest like trolls, gnomes, little people. There are things that a lot of people just bypass and don't look for when they take video or pictures that are out there. So there's so many more things. I mean, there's just a multitude of things out there that, as you kind of alluded to earlier with the Brown Springs incidents, there's so much out there that hasn't even been discovered, yet we may inadvertently might stumble upon it, or we look past it because we're just looking for one particular creature or one particular entity. And I'm guarantee you, we're talking Bigfoot, Dogman, ghosts, entities, things of that nature. I'll guarantee you there's there's 36 dozen other things out there that we have probably just looked right past.
Yeah. Well, and let's just run just very quickly through a few stories that people, big name researchers that have done who spend a lot of time looking at this, have come up with. The little people, right? And, they're seen in Alaska, they're seen in the continental U.S., they're seen in South America, in Latin America, they're seen in the old world. Living dinosaurs, not just the pterosaurs that we're seeing; those aren't technically dinosaurs, but like people describing, like out in the Congo, you've got two different, one sauropod, one ceratopsian seen out there. We've got any number of lake monsters that range from plesiosaurs to possible zoolodons. We've got theropods. There have been theropods seen in the continental United States. They seem to be smaller, but people said, I just looked out the window and I saw what look like they're like a dinosaur, like a small T-Rex. They've been seen all over the place. You've got giant condors that are big enough to pick up children that are seen. We've got the Sharon Wonka, which looks like some sort of American hyena. We've got, it goes on and on and on. And those are just the cryptozoological things, right? We're not talking about the stuff, like, again, one of the stories that kept out of mine were essentially several groups of people seeing what is clearly a supernatural creature around the house of a gentleman who was having sleep paralysis. And his child described seeing the creature one time go into his room. And then two other people, not from that household, described seeing the same creature either in front or behind the house. And it looks like something out of someone's nightmare. Clearly not a physical creature, but people saw it in just walking around in the neighborhood. Like, even just on the cryptozoological side, there's so many of these missing pieces and these things. To Rob's very excellent point, well, you're out there looking for Bigfoot, but what if you're not what if that's not what's out there? What if there's other things out there that you're missing because you're not actually looking for it? So there's so much to this that again, I just feel blessed to be with these guys who are willing to ask these genuinely hard questions, and questions that aren't good. They're not making, like, none of these questions are making us friends in the community, right? Like, I mean, it's like I always love the fact that there's a fringe element of like cryptozoology and the paranormal. I'm like, really? We're the radicals? So but it is what it is. We're trying, because what we want isn't to say, look, I'm a Bigfooter, because I'm not. I'm a generalist. I don't care about Bigfoot more than I care about any of the other cryptids. I just want to know what the truth is. So I don't even call myself a Bigfooter. I call myself a biblical paranormal researcher. I want the whole thing. I'm actually more into archaeology than I am anything else. So the question, but I just love the fact that we're with a bunch of guys who are willing to say to the establishment that actually exists. I can't help but laugh at that idea. If there's an establishment in this field,
that's crazy.
But there is, and for us to look at all sides of this camp and be like, screw y'all, you're all wrong. Let's actually start asking some real questions here, because clearly y'all are all wrong, or you'd have what we needed to begin with. We wouldn't ask these questions because you'd already have the answers and you'd have the evidence to prove it. But you don't. That means you don't.
One of the things, and I'm going to piss off some people. One of the things, one of my pet peeves is you got people out there that claim to communicate almost on a daily basis with these things. And we're talking Bigfoot here. You've got people that they live on my property. I see them all the time. Okay, where's your evidence? Well, I've got this blurry picture. I've got this. You've got the same crap everybody else does.
Yep.
And you supposedly share, however many acres with this thing, and it's peeking in the window at you and it's talking to you, and you can't get nothing better than I can. I'm sorry. I just can't buy into that. I'm not saying you're not experiencing anything, but I would be doing my level best to get a selfie with one of these damn things if I could. That's just me. But and on the flip side of that, you got these people that you just
He's speechless.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out a nice way to put it.
Oh, come on. This ain't a family show.
Go ahead, say what you got to say, Jax. Say it. Just say it.
Well,
do it.
It's fine.
Do it.
You got these egotistical a-holes.
There you go.
That think just because, random thought here, that they fly a drone around.
Oh, God. I know who you're talking about right now. He is an a-hole.
See?
that you had an experience. You think you heard a sound one time, and you can sit up on your throne and call somebody else's evidence or experiences into question. What gives you the right to do that? I don't have the right to do that, and I'm out in the field. Brenda don't have the right. She don't even try to pretend to do that. She's out in the field busting her hump. But you can sit up on your throne and go, well, I'm an expert in doing this, and I'm an expert in doing this. Well, you're an expert at being an asshole is what you're an expert at.
Thank you.
Well, and you know what?
Instead of chopping other people down and forcing the whole community to take steps back, you need to be having your expertise, whatever it is, and try to help bring it forward, not chop it down.
And you know what?
I'm sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, well, Tex, I'm gonna kind of chime in a little bit too because
And take some of that soap and wash your mouth out, young man.
and I just want to make mention.
Sorry for the.
Oh, you're
okay,
good.
Tex,
You're good.
It's okay because I'm gonna continue because Brenda, you got a new channel here and you got some people in here. I know some of them, some I don't. I got to say one thing though, and Andrew's talking. There's maybe 50 Bigfoot channels, paranormal channels. There's hundreds, there's thousands. I don't know. I only watched maybe 4 or 5, including what me and Jason and Tex have put together and Bob. And there are other people that I can say this. I think I can speak freely for our group. We're here to present information, ask tough questions, and give you things that we think is relevant to the subject. We offer our opinion, not our expertise, because we're not experts. Mm-hmm. We don't disparage people. We have great guests. They might be full of bunk, and we might make jokes about them when they leave our show later. But we do not. But we do not. We do not release it to the public. We keep it between ourselves. And I think there's only one person I might have done that with, and she happens to be a friend of mine. And I shouldn't have said the word she either, by the way. With that being said, there are other people that they want drama, they want controversy, because you know what they want? Because Tex, Jason, and myself, we're not doing this to make $100,000, $1 million. We're doing this because we love doing what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And it ain't about money or prestige or recognition. Other people out there, that's why you have to differentiate between the two, because I just learned this. I've been doing this 3 years. There are people that are at a soapbox. They want to be a soap opera like General Hospital. They want to disparage anybody, no matter what they say or not say. If someone comes on our show and says they talk to the devil or they talk to Sasquatch, we're going to listen to them and find out how they've gone about getting these, look for the evidence, right? But we're not going to cut them down. People are looking for views and ratings. We don't do that in our show. Certainly, Brent.
And it shows.
And that's all I got to say, Tex, on that, because, that does kind of tick me off, because I watched a show last night that sucked, and I just shut it off. And
well, I think bottom line is we all need to learn how to be respectful to each other.
Yeah.
And you can disagree with somebody and still be respectful.
Yep.
Right.
And,
oh no, you could argue somebody and be respectful and disagree. I could disagree with you, Jason, Bob, whoever. It don't matter. But I'm not going to say you're full of bunk. I'm going to kind of evaluate your opinion and rethink it and say, well, I can see where this person's coming from. Not just shut them down like, no, that's totally wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean? What are the reasons? Why do you think this way? Why do you have that opinion?
Ask questions.
To understand.
Well, me and Jason, we do not agree on everything as far as Bigfoot goes. We don't.
No.
Yeah.
But
I know.
That gives us something that a lot of people don't have. If you have two people that are exact frame of mind, they're yes men for each other, or I'm sorry, yes people for each other.
Yes, zers.
Yeah. Yes, persons.
non-binary persons of
Yeah.
But you create an echo chamber, right? You create that you become
it's a vacuum.
Yeah.
Because you don't further anything.
Right.
Me and Jason, we can have debates all day long, but we're not going to disrespect each other. I have my
not on camera. I mean, like I said, off camera.
Yeah. Well,
like I said, the best way to describe this team is abusively codependent.
Each other off camera, but that's beside the point. But
love stabs. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just it's another one of those checks and balances that you have to throw in there. Having a healthy debate is a lot of people can't differentiate having a healthy debate versus having an argument.
That's right. It's true.
Yep.
Well, I'm not going to say that.
Go ahead, Brenda. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm not going to say that, everything I have on my channel is Bigfoot, but I have had been in many areas that we had Bigfoot activity.
Right.
I'm going to tell you the best video that I have on my channel right now. If anybody has not seen it, please go check it out. Jaxx had me up on was it Brunch with Bigfoot when I presented it, was Bigfoot at the noose.
Okay.
We caught a juvenile running away from us, and it was purely by accident, I promise.
Oh, wow.
Well, Brenda, do you
and
have
I can
two
tell
channels
you,
now? Do you have 2 channels now?
I have. Oh, I have one. We know my Brenda Hawkins, the PARA-CRYPTID hunter, which I kind of stole, Texas name just a little bit, but kind of switched it around because I like the sound of it. Because I'm a ghost hunter and a Bigfoot hunter, so I didn't know how to put it. So
Okay.
and then
Hawk Paranormal.
And then we have Hawk Paranormal ESTNC. That's another good channel to go check out. We have some pretty good investigations up there if you like ghost stuff.
Okay.
So,
well,
but definitely,
they say, what is it? Imitation is the greatest form of flattery, and when
is the sincerest form of flattery.
Sincerest form of flattery. So when he popped that channel up there, I was grinning ear to ear, darling. Let me tell you, when you used the PARA-CRYPTID word, I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, I like it too. Everybody keeps telling me that I need to change my name to the Bigfoot Whisperer, but Jaxx gave me that name.
I thought I was being original because I was trying to combine the 2 terms, and when I was naming my channel, and I came up with this term. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to look and see if there's anything out there. Found a couple of little channels that had that in it, and I'm like, dadgummit, I can't, but it's a relatively unused term, so I like to get it. I like the fact we're getting it out there more. Maybe we'll have everybody saying it for long.
Yeah.
I think it's catchy.
It is. Well, I think it's a much more honest description because we aren't limiting ourselves. It's more like you want to be just Bigfoot, fine, be just Bigfoot. But as we pointed out, that mentality has not got us anywhere because the paranormal is inexorably linked to Bigfoot, whether we like it or not.
Yep.
And that's not going to change until we can, if we can even separate the two. We're not going to be able to just focus on Bigfoot until you can say what is and is not Bigfoot. So until we can really isolate it, you have to be PARA-CRYPTID. You have to look at the paranormal. You have to look at mythology. You have to look at psychology. You have to look at these other aspects to say what is really going on here. Because again, we're just working from the assumption or just we really want there to be a bipedal ape running around to say that there is a bipedal ape running around. And I think there's plenty of evidence for one, not just here in North America, but it seems like they exist in many, many places, that there's just another group of hominids that are at least some semi-bipedal that are running around. And there's some great stories that came out of India like 100 years ago of them coming across these creatures that were dehydrated and giving them water. This dude has an entire, this marking in his journal. It's like this thing happened. We gave them water. They got better. They walked off. And these things were like 6.5 feet tall. but he describes them very thoroughly. So it's like there's reason to believe that these things do exist. But then we have to say, okay, but not everything that's being called Bigfoot is Bigfoot. And then we have the question of, again, what if they're only real? What if they're tangible, natural creatures over there, but over here it's something else entirely? Like, the problem is there's so many aspects that if you don't know what something is, that means you don't know what it isn't, and that's a dangerous place to be. And so what we're trying to figure out, and I think that you have to be para-cryptid so you can say, well, what is or is not a thing? Because let me throw this last little monkey wrench, no pun intended, into the whole conversation, right? We've said that maybe you can't separate the paranormal from Bigfoot, meaning it could be an entirely paranormal phenomena. I'm only working from the assumption that the pterosaurs seen by myself and other people in North Texas and in other places around the world, I'm working from the assumption that those are natural beings as well. It's very possible that everything we consider to be a cryptid is in some way an expression of paranormal phenomena.
Right.
At this point, we don't really have sufficient evidence to say it's not. I don't want to just default to everything's paranormal or supernatural, right? But at the same time, we have to be open to the idea that maybe either what we saw was, what we saw isn't what we think we saw. We have to be willing to say that's a possibility. Now the question becomes, why did we see what we saw, right? One of the reasons I even came out about my encounter was the fact that there were other people who had the exact same kind of thing. They thought it was a crane. They thought it was a pelican. They thought it was some other form of egret that flies with its neck or crane back in an S shape, right? Like, they all said the same thing. We thought it was the thing that we knew, and then we got a better look at it. Now, you talk to any psychologist, people who have hallucinations, that's not the case. They know what they're seeing because it's coming out of their own head, right? In fact, that's a very common story for people who have hallucinations. It's like, well, I turned around and I saw whatever walking around. It's like, well, how did you know that? Well, because I knew it, right? So it's whatever that was. It wasn't necessarily in our heads, but it doesn't. I have to be 100% here. It doesn't mean that what I saw was a living, natural creature. I have to be willing to put that up on, take it off the pedestal, put it on the chopping block, and say, what if that's not a tangible creature? Where you saw it, where I saw it, and where 3 other people have seen it, is connected to, now in the last few years, a story about a dog man. It's connected to Sasquatch, and there may be reasons for that are reasonable and natural. It's a creek. It's a great place to hide. There's water. There's fish. Sure, there's plenty of reasons to think that they were there and that they were natural creatures. But at the same time, it's connected to Witch Mountain, which has Cedar Hill, which has, again, and guess what? So guess what was seen there? Bigfoot and lights. So it's one of those things where I can come up with a reasonable explanation for the Bigfoot sightings, which is them following the creeks around Dallas, right? So they don't go through downtown. They're following the rivers and the creeks to take them all the way over outside of. It makes perfect sense. I've got mythology or stories of these things going back over 100 years in the area. But at the same time, I have to be willing to recognize, just because these are all true things, we've got overlaps that a reasonable, someone who's really looking for the truth has to acknowledge. There's an awful lot of cemeteries along the pathway that these things are seen. There's a lot of overlap in where these things are seen. The fact that one of the main places for all this is going on is Witch Mountain. Like, okay, I have to at least put that there and say maybe all of these cryptozoological things are paranormal. I can't say yes or no yet. So if I can't say yes or no, then I have to put, if we're going to be honest, we have to put everything on the table and sort it and do the hard work of saying what's what. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. It ain't making us a lot of friends. But I think this is the way we have to go. But we're never going to get to the bottom of any of this. And all we're doing is creating more chatter and more noise that doesn't get us anywhere, and that's not what we're here for.
Right. And you know what, Jason, too, I'm going to add another layer to what you just said, not to make it even more complicated. You also have the factions out there that relate the Bigfoot with UFOs, orbs, and things like that. In fact, yourself, Jason, you wrote a little book about UFOs,
I did.
aliens, and the Bible. You even mentioned Aleister Crowley, for gosh sakes. So you know what? You guys want another good book to read? Check that out. And but that's another layer added on top of what Jason just so eloquently said. And who knows, you guys? This is just a long battle that who knows? I might be in the grave for the answers. I don't know.
I think, and I've been saying this for years, I think we're going to have Bigfoot disclosure or recognition in my lifetime. That's just my opinion. That is,
of course, he also believes he doesn't. He's going to live to be 173.
Yeah.
That is ITO in Texas opinion. So
Is there anything that anybody in the chat would love to ask any one of these gentlemen? Please do drop it in the chat and put it in all caps. I've been trying to throw up comments from here and there that I've been seeing pop up through while you guys were talking because I didn't want to interrupt you. I figured if you've seen it, you touch on that base.
Yeah,
but
the couple that I saw that I can't remember. But.
It's probably CRYPTID was she's one of the ladies I had up on my panel. She's another female Bigfoot hunter too. She's been doing it for a little bit anyways, and some of the stuff she has up on her channel is pretty interesting. Actually most of it, but she gets a lot of the footprints and stuff like that.
So real quick, just something for the female Bigfooters out there. There is absolutely a connection between females and Bigfoot. And in fact, if you really look through, when men tend to come across Bigfoots because we are out in their territory, right? We're hunting, or we're ranchers, and they're coming to steal a pig or whatever. That seems to be the connection. But they will come to females and children. In fact, for those who've seen the Legend of Boggy Creek, that was something that I noticed real early in that film, which is out on Blu-ray now, finally. Was if you look at all the guys, their encounters are in the field, whereas all the female and children, the things are coming to them because they're interested. Children as well. Again, there's a story in my book where kid was playing alone in the backyard. The mother had the door open so she could hear because it's in neighborhood. Yeah, 6-foot privacy fence. The Sasquatch peeks over it to look at the kid. And those are stories we get all the time of what seem to be maybe even female Bigfoot checking in on kids playing, right? So for the female hunters out there, I'm saying, definitely take precautions. Don't just be like skipping through the forest. Take precautions. But I think that I wouldn't be surprised if the best evidence comes from females, because I think that they're going to end up not being afraid of y'all. I think they know that there's that sort of, I'm not saying take your kids in squatching either. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if the really good evidence is going to end up coming from female Sasquatch hunters, because they're going to they do seem to be less intimidated by females than males.
And to answer that question, no, I haven't heard any reports about that. I can look into it, but I haven't, just off the top of my head, no, I haven't.
Yeah.
Did you say Matt?
Oh yeah. Through her sunroof, yeah, exactly. So that's a story that has occurred a lot of times where women and children, or even just young girls, are like teenage girls, are home alone. They'll come right up to the house. Now, here's the thing. Well, and this goes back to that whole question of how much of that's actually Bigfoot, how much of that is something else. Because I've got another account of a woman that this, like, every time she's at this ranch house, a creature's coming up. And of course, when they saw it, it was just again tall, dark, hairy figure, glowing red eyes. So that calls that whole encounter into question. But yeah, the Boggy Creeks thing's a real thing.
Let's address this because actually we're guilty of this. In what ways have any of you tried to communicate with him? Well, personally, I'll talk when I'm in the field, but I have taken people out with me that say they mind speak with him, but other than that, I can't say I've actually tried to communicate. Well, unless you say, doing calls and occasional wood knock. I really don't put in a whole lot of the wood knock thing. I don't really put in a whole lot of weight, but I do calls every once in a while, not very often. I tend to do them more aggressive, what I call more aggressive ones, because that's how I've gotten more. Since I talk to them, show them pictures and artwork so far, and the written word too. That's awesome. I have not done that. I do have something I want to do. That we have several experiments that we want to do, but we haven't conducted them yet. So I know Jason, when he's out there, he puts out food for them and stuff like that. But as far as open communication, right now we're focusing on Brown Springs.
But we are looking for some other locations as well that might.
We have some in the hopper. We just haven't made it out there yet.
Come North Carolina, I'll take you to a bunch.
Well, and I'll be up there next year. So,
and as far as communication, I've actually, again, not necessarily in an attempt to communicate, but to elicit a response. I read the Sermon on the Mount. Bob and I even one time tried to make a collect call to Bigfoot, but he did not answer. He did not take the charges. So, but it goes back to, again, there is a question of what do you mean by communication, right? Because communication comes in a lot of different forms. Right. And so we try to present an opportunity for them to come closer to us and make it as amenable for them to come to us as possible.
Now, I've been out by myself and had what I believe was critters coming up close to me, and I will check that out. Thank you.
Yeah, I've never heard of Skull Creek. All right, I'll put it on the list.
But where was I going with that? What was I talking about?
Y'all got me messed up now because that's how they read what Matt said.
I think it would have been TX Bourbon.
Right.
Yeah, TX Bourbon. Yeah. I have to admit, it's good. I was surprised. I wasn't expecting it to be that good as it is, but it is.
I enjoyed it.
Well, see, y'all got to trust Tex when it comes to drinks. You know? That's a good question. He can address that because I just figured out what I was saying. So, there it went again. I'll have what I think is critters coming up close to my camp when I'm out there by myself. And I've spoken to them like, I hear you. How you doing? That type of thing. And they'll stop.
He's over there. How you doing?
Yeah, how you doing? And they'll stop, and everything will get real quiet for a little bit, and then you'll hear them again. So it's the next time I'm in San Antonio, I will give me a shout and I will holler at you.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, Tex.
Yeah.
I'm gonna respond to Gene real quick if you don't mind.
Go ahead,
Rob? Excuse me. Gene asked Rob. I know at some point you're going to do some research with in Texas with Jason and Tex. How you feel about that, Gene? I feel good about it. I think it's. I mean, I do enough shows with Tex and Jason about it, and I'm very intrigued about it. Now, I will say this to be totally honest. It's not my ideal research because of all the craziness that goes on. I'd prefer if it was just an area where we just knew it was Bigfoot. So again, it's going to be complicated what we find or what we don't find as in regards to trying to differentiate between an actual creature or a paranormal entity. So I tell you what, I'm going to be a little reluctant, apprehensive. I'm not going to lie about that, but I'm definitely looking forward to it because I know Tex has got my back. You know, he'll protect me. You know, Jason's going to have his flip flops on, so I don't know if he'll be walking through the woods at all, but it'll be a good time.
I'm there to cook and have a good time. That's again, sex, allowing the sexiness to bring them to me. So this is actually a great example, right? Of there being some different opinions on how to do all of this research. I don't think that running around with like here Bigfoot is going to bring them to you, right? I think they're going to be like, the hell are those people doing out there? Are they wearing Ghostbusters backpacks? What's going on with them? Like I think they're going to be just like, what is going on? We have so many stories of them coming close to camp to be like, okay, well, so what's going on over here? They seem to be having a good time. Can we steal some of their beer? Can we get some of their food? Right? My thing is just let them come. Let them come hang out. I'm a good guy to hang out with. We make some good smelling food. I try to leave some out. I like to be a good host. We like to make noise, talk. Bring them in. Get them coming in. So I think I just think it's a better chance. Like one of the things I want to do is set up a long-term camera trap at I'm trying to find the location. I'm looking for a gas station that serves food, like it makes food, right? And so it's going to be throwing food out. It's next to a creek on the outside of on just the outskirts of a city. Like it's a lot of combination of factors I'm looking for, but I'm looking for it because I think they're going to be going there for food because I think they're migratory. I think they're going to go for food. So I want to put up something where, again, they're coming to us versus going to them. I just think in the long term, them coming to us is going to be is going to give us the better evidence than running around with these Ghostbuster backpacks and night vision goggles and being like, woo, and having them just like that's like, what are they doing?
Well, I tell you what, too, Jason, absolutely. I do. My theory would be this, though. I think during the daylight, I think you're more apt to find a flesh and blood creature. And I think nighttime, that's just totally going to throw me off because me and cemeteries, we don't mix. Although when I was 14 years old, I camped out in a cemetery and nothing happened. So we'll see.
Yep.
All right, we got one more for you, and then we're gonna call it good, y'all, because we've been up here for almost 2 hours now, and I'm getting ready to get up because my bones are starting to get stiff. It says, Jason, I track and respect them. I don't go with guns. I have been more trained by my Cherokee grandfather to track these creatures. We teach people to live like them. Cool. That would be interesting.
When we're down in San Antonio, we'd love to hook up. Absolutely.
Yeah, Matt is amazing.
Yeah, because I mean,
you know what I love?
I would love to learn that aspect of it, and that's the one thing, it's what we do may not be right. We don't know. The more tools we have in our tool belt, the better off we are.
Well, and this goes back to sort of the question that we've asked is, because we don't know what Bigfoot is. We've even, like, here's another assumption that we're making. We're assuming that the Bigfoot of the Pacific Northwest is the same thing as the Bigfoot that we're seeing in Texas, is the same thing as the skunk ape that we're seeing out in Florida. Now, it's a reasonable expectation. I mean, how many bipedal ape-like creatures can you have in a country, right? Well, the answer to that is as many as will fit. We don't know. They may be different things because we look at the ones in the Pacific Northwest. They're very big. They're very robust. That makes sense. It's a lot of cold. You get down here to the Sabine thing, seen by our friend Crypto Hulk several times. They're very lean, right? Sorry, they're very lean. They seem to actually have hair on their head that sort of grows out like humans do, versus the Pacific Northwest seems to keep it more chimp-like, right? So it's like, are they the same species, just regional variants, which would make sense, or are they two different species? We don't know. Also, the Caddo of East Texas, they called them stick Indians. They, unlike some of these other, like the Pacific Northwest, Sasquatch is a supernatural creature to them. To the Caddo, they were just another tribe. They were this very isolated, very strange tribe, but they were just a tribe. That is that indicative of there being maybe two different species or two entirely different things going on? We actually don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised to say or to find out that once all this shakes out, that maybe what we're seeing in parts of Texas isn't necessarily the same thing as what we're seeing in the Pacific Northwest, right? Not saying it's one way or the other, but I wouldn't be surprised if the population here in Texas, the things that we're seeing more often than not, the physical ones, are maybe something else. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're just they may be a very different species, maybe even a smarter species. They may even be more human-like. Who knows? Maybe they are human, but they're humans who look different. Like that's another question to this whole thing, is we're all assuming they're bipedal primates. What if they're just humans that look different from us? And a long time ago, realized, you know what? You guys are crazy. You guys kill each other for no reason. You rob, you steal, you burn things down. We're just going to go chill over here, right? Maybe they made that decision thousands of years ago. And so they're like, let's just stay away from these people. They eat Twinkies. You don't want anything to do with them. Like, that may be a whole other factor to this. And maybe it's all of the above. But yeah, no, so I'd love to we'd love to go down there.
Okay. I had a quick question for Second Star Survival. I know you want to go, Brenda. I was in San Antonio twice on the river. I was in San Antonio twice on the Riverwalk, and I want to ask Second Star Survival if Dirty Nellies is still available or still open, because I did quite a bit of damage down there, and I'd love to return.
Well, guys. I'm sorry. I was just going to say thanks for having us on.
Yes. Thank you.
No, you're good. Thank you. You're good. You're good. Isn't it you, Bob, that like with the UFO thing? Are you the UFO? What are you guys? So I heard somebody talking about UFO. Who was it? Maybe it wasn't you guys.
Not really.
We've talked about UFOs on our show. We've had.
That's probably what it was.
We had Gordon, God rest his soul. You know that communicated with aliens quite often. His wife, girlfriend, I'm not sure what that relationship was, but she claimed to have 12 hybrid children.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have breached that subject, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm interested in learning about that too. So, anyway, look, guys.
Second Star says it's still open down there, so I just got to put that back on my bucket list.
All right, then. Sounds like it's time to shut them down.
Shut it down. Dirty Nellies. I actually engraved my name in a urinal stall over there. So we'll end it on a good note.
True.
He was bored while he was on the pooper.
No, I was standing. I was standing.
Oh, okay.
Too much info.
All right,
Time to
y'all.
go.
You're standing to poop? What?
No,
Wow.
I wasn't doing.
No.
Brenda, you better get us out of here.
I
This is
wasn't
going
doing
downhill
number
real
2,
quick.
man.
Well, this
I wasn't
conversation
going.
went south in a hurry, didn't it?
I was drinking the main van. Too many beers. We drank like 90 beers that day. I had breakfast, lunch,
Y'all,
and dinner in there.
Thank you so much for coming. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for coming up here and listening to these four wonderful gentlemen tell me about everything. Well, not everything, but a lot of things they know and things that they have found out during their research for Bigfoot and cryptids completely. So if you guys would like to go check these gentlemen out, Trinity PARA-CRYPTID Research. You got Jason, you got Tex, you got Bob, and you got Bigfoot Michigan Rob. They have 2 shows a night. They have their Monday night, which starts, 7 o'clock?
6:30.
Yes. 6:30.
Yeah, 6:30. Okay. And see, I always catch you guys about 7 o'clock, so I say 7. And then Thursdays at 1 o'clock, Brunch with Bigfoot is one of my favorites. But when you guys subscribe to them, tell them that Brenda Hawkins sent you. They all know me. Everybody have an amazing, wonderful night, and thank you so much for being here. God bless you all.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
Bob has his own channel too.
Yeah, Van Beer and Variety every Tuesday.
Yeah,
I'm
Tuesday nights.
Sorry,
at 7
you know, I
o'clock
have to go
Central.
look you up. I will have to go look you up. I will pop up on one of your shows.
Van Buren Variety, we broadcast live every Tuesday at 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. And so we talk about myriad of topics. I mean, it's unlimited. So it is a variety show. So
Yeah, he had a lawyer on this week.
yeah, attorney on.
I'll go check you out.
Next week we have a professional lady talking about marketing, being a better leader in the workplace. So that'll be an interesting show, I think.
That's interesting. Okay, I got you. I'll definitely check you out. I'll pop up on there and listen to what you got to say.
Thank
All right, everybody. God bless everybody. Everybody have an amazing night.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Brenda.
We out.
Bye.
See everybody later.
Got to find that